Hails and welcome to Rauta's dual review. This time it's time to talk about Ukrainian band Kroda. Now, Kroda is no doubt one of the most important Ukrainian names nowadays. Maybe it wasn't so big a name in early 2000s because after all the band pretty much started in the first decade of a new millennium. But during past few years, we could say past 10 years or so, Kroda has really proven to be one of the forces to reckon with. The kind of a band that has been active in terms of not only doing live shows but also putting out quite a few albums. Basically every 2 years or so the band has something new to offer, that and also live albums. Now with this review I am combining two different albums into one review because basically it makes no sense to do two separate videos and just recap all the information 2 times. Rather, let's save some time, and now that you have the band mentioned and I will show you it on Metal Archives, I will also guide you through these two review albums which have been sent me quite a long time ago, but they have been waiting for proper time to get through. This one is Kälte Aurora live in Lemberg and it has 3 CDs. It's a very special gig with special release and I will show you why. And then we have a full-length album called GinnungaGap GinnungaGaldr GinnungaKaos. Very Viking kind of a theme here. To be honest, I don't know in which order I should go really, because it doesn't matter that this album is older, because then again this live actually kind of recaps the whole story. But maybe we'll go in a chronological order, so I'll guide you through. Before we get to comment whether or not these albums are good or something in between, I'll show you the packaging and tell you very basic of the genre, what Kroda is all about. Now basically we could say that Kroda is pretty much something like atmospheric black metal, but it's not without mentioning that there are lots of something that which could be described as folk metal influences. More importantly, I guess it's worth mentioning that when it comes to different subgenres of black metal, Kroda is definitely more on the pagan side. It's not actually one of those bands praising about Satan worshipping or devil and devil's creations or getting out of heaven as one of those rebellious forces or whatever, how you want to see it. It's not one of those bands maybe diving deep into the world of occult and demons and dark forces. More so, Kroda is flirting with the ideas of heathenism, one could say nationalism in a way, but not being NSBM. However, there are some links which you will soon find about more, which are the reasons why they say sometimes labeled as one of those questionable bands politically. Now, there might be also some interviews which are linked to this kind of stuff, or playing in certain fests, which makes you guilty by affiliation. Now, really can't touch those topics when we're talking about mere album reviews, and as such they're beyond the scope of this video. If there are any things, you can pretty much find that out. You can just do your homework in case you need to be, but this video is all about these true releases. As you can see, this one was recorded in 2016 in Ukraine, and it has quite an interesting thing. 3 different chapters basically, of which the 2 last ones, CD 2 and 3, are metal ones. Now the last CD actually is half Kroda tracks and half cover tracks. You might notice some names like Burzum, Demnazor and Absurd. And on the second album, which is mostly about Kroda music, there is a Nocturnal Martyrdom cover. So there is definitely kind of a vibe for certain kind of bands. And more interestingly, this first CD is purely instrumental CD, instrumental release. It's kind of 40 minutes or so trip to synthesizer music, keyboard music without vocals and all that is including guitars and all. So as you can see, a pretty nice looking package, 3 different CDs. There is not too much to see underneath the CD trays. It's just black, but showing it you nevertheless. And then of course there is this booklet, which is there to show you some interesting images. These are basically photographies turned into more, I could say, colorful versions with some hard editing, and they are kind of a psychedelic, if you ask me. I mean, you can pretty much get this live feeling from these photos, but they're definitely very interesting in terms of color and design. So not so much like things to read, like lyrics and so forth, but rather to capture this very unique feeling of the band. Now, Kroda has gone through quite a few lineup changes over the years, and what I have gathered is that Kroda kind of started as a studio project, but later on evolved into a full band. And curious enough, with those lineup changes, the band has been in constant shift, constant change throughout the years. So it's been like the band has progressed and evolved its style, both good and bad, into something different than how they started. But like I said, the basic thing with what the Kroda is all about is this atmospheric black metal, which then again goes from more melancholic parts to more fierce parts. I mean, there are faster parts which are kind of closer to what could be seen as traditional second wave black metal. So it's a vast scope of metal of different kinds, but still obviously talking about black metal here. And this keyboard driven black metal is at some points very melodic and kind of a soothing and melancholic, kind of like sad. But also it can be very energetic and, you know, right in your face. Not in the same ways, you know, as bands like Marduk and the like. So it's not one of those more violent types, more in the beautiful and soothing style, but there are these faster and more aggressive parts. Now, as you can see here on Kroda's Metal Archive site, quite a few releases, and there are live albums, more than one. And this live in Lemberg II, Kälte Aurora, which we have here from 2017, is already released in different chapters in different live albums. But there are also a couple of others. I don't know why a band of this size and this style has put out so many live albums, but what do I know? And then you have lots of these full-length albums. But let's go first to GinnungaGap GinnungaGaldr and GinnungaKaos, because that's the one we have here first, 2015 release. This is, in my opinion, one of the better ones of Kroda. I haven't heard all their albums, obviously, but some here and there. And this is kind of a already more experienced or already kind of veteran status Kroda. I mean, 10 years in and all. And this one goes almost 40 minutes in total time and has these 8 tracks which constantly go through these elements I mentioned. Melodic, energetic, kind of a faster tempo, mid-tempo, and lots of keyboards. Lots of keyboards. That's kind of a Kroda trademark. So they're definitely more this kind of a pagan black metal. You kind of have ideas. Doesn't matter if you have been, you know, listening to bands like Nocturna Mortum, Graveland, and the like. So there's this definitely this kind of a strong pagan feeling, which is then again flirting even more so with folk music, which then again brings out these more traditional instruments beyond guitars, keyboards, drums, bass, and all that stuff. And that kind of creates this nice flavor. One could say there is some resemblance to, or similarity to bands like Drudk, some people might say. And as such, there is this kind of a Ukrainian mentality. One could say this is something that could be seen or coming from, you know, Eastern Europe or parts of Russia, different states and all, or ex-Russian countries. So in that respect, this is kind of a very typical Ukrainian, if you get my wheel, or more if you get my drift. That is, this doesn't sound like your typical Swedish or Norwegian black metal, and even less the kind of bands that come from Latin America or United States of America. So very different feeling. One could say there's certain kind of Eastern feeling, but not Oriental feeling. Some people totally get what I mean, and some people, in case you're wondering, well, there are lots of these bands that fall into the same category and box. And this GGG album is, in my opinion, a good album, but it's not mind-blowing. Let's be honest about it. Kroda has made weaker parts and then also better ones. And Selbstwelt, their latest one from 2018, is a little bit better in my opinion. Maybe their best so far, I don't know. But definitely that area. And GGG just falls in the middle. Not the worst, not the best, but a good album nevertheless. Now this Kälte Aurora live in Lemberg II with these 3 albums is kind of a peculiar because this is more about fan service album. I mean, first of all, who would like to listen some 40 minutes of synthesizer music by Kroda, which is flirting with Dungeon synth and ambient and all those metal bands gone synthesizer. I mean, think about Iljan or Burzum's synth albums and you have roughly the idea what is going on. Not exactly Mortiz, but still close enough to be put in the same box. For fans of the band, yeah, definitely worth listening to. But as an individual synthesizer keyboard album, I don't know, it's decent, but I wouldn't honestly listen to that unless it was a part of this whole live deal here. But definitely for certain kind of people who enjoy that kind of stuff, it's a decent release. But the best here on this triple CD release is definitely this disc 2, which features mostly Kroda's music, as I was already explaining. That is where the steak and potato of this album is. I mean, you have 7 tracks, which are, including the intro that is, Kroda music. And then you have this decent Nocturnal Murder cover, which makes more sense as a live cover than what it makes sense on an album. And this third album has a Burzum cover as a starter, then 3 tracks, and then again going back to covers like Dinosaur and Absurd. Once again, it depends how you like these albums, how you perceive them. For me, I could easily say this Burzum track, Jesu Död, is definitely the best one on the whole album. But that tells only about how much I like Burzum versus Kroda's own music. Then again, I don't really care about these Demons or Absurd or Nocturnal Mortem covers because, I mean, never been a fan of those bands. They're not bad, but just not my cup of tea. And as a result, I would say Burzum first, then the Kroda tracks, and then these other covers. And then as the rather interesting but not so musically wow thing comes this ambient album. What comes as a surprise is that, you know, Kroda isn't like band of Iron Maiden size or anything like that. And still, this production for this whole live recording session is a good quality. I mean, in the terms of different instruments and all, it is quite good sounding. The production is very solid. Vocals, keyboards, guitars and all, you know, they're rather clear and crisp and quite powerful. So the balance is right there. So it's nicely mixed and mastered. So can't have any complaints in the terms of production for a live album. But what kind of person would go for a Kroda live album without being a Kroda fan? I cannot doubt too many people do that. If you haven't heard Kroda at all, this is a good way to get introduced to the band. But let's be honest about it, those studio albums are better ways to do that. But this is a nice way to also get the kind of overall feeling about the whole band. Not the best of Kroda, not the worst, so pretty much a decent way to do it. And definitely if you're a fan, this serves as a good fan service release. 3 CDs with a nice digipack package, which you already saw, and then some photos. So for fans of the band, definitely a good candidate to put into your record collection. But if you're looking for a CD material, and as such, if I would have to pick the winner for this so-called duel, I would say go with the GGG rather, especially if you're new to the band and you don't know the band so much. This is definitely a fun service thing. In terms of being a better release, this one is the one. But it all depends on your favorite ones and tastes and whatever preferences you might have. But in case Ukrainian black metal has a blind spot for you, this is a good way to go with. Check out some Kroda and I hope you enjoyed. Take care.